Hello, everyone. Today we have Keith Agoada. He's the co-founder and CEO of Producers Market. Producers Market is a new way to digitizing the agricultural value chain over blockchain. Keith and his team are building the most comprehensive community of farmers and consumers. Keith, welcome to the show.
Hey Richard, thanks for having me today.
Pleasure. Tell us a little bit about Producers Market.
Yeah, Producers Market is a digital ecosystem where we're working directly with agricultural producers globally. These are farmers, packers, processors, the co-ops associations, and working to help tell their story digitally and get them onto new digital technologies so that they can connect directly with buyers upstream and to also share their stories and content with end consumers around the world.
Okay, interesting. So why is it important to share stories in the case of a producer?
Yeah, well, I mean, for myself as a consumer and our team, we love to know who's growing our food, and we love to learn the stories behind the groups that are growing our food. And one of my most memorable moments is going to farmers markets, visiting farms, and getting to know exactly who's growing our food, how they're growing it, the stories behind their techniques and everything. And oftentimes with the food that we buy at the supermarket or we buy from brands or we buy online, or restaurants, we don't really know what's going on with the food. Is it organic? Where is it sourced from? Can we trust who's growing it? And all that information is kind of lost right now. So we're kind of blind and ignorant to the products that we're consuming.
Okay, that's actually an amazing point. I've always wondered, is this label true? What is the story behind this loaf of bread, or maybe even in your case, a lettuce head that arrived and it says organic on it, right? There's definitely a story behind it, and that's what you guys are doing. So in a sense, you're using this mechanism to facilitate or as a lead gen process for the producer, right?
Absolutely. We look at storytelling in two buckets. One is qualitative, which is like the soft information, right? Like the photos, the videos, the stories, interviews, the history, the farming practices. These are all qualitative and it's qualitative storytelling. But the other side of it is the quantitative, the actual hard data. When was this harvested? How is this packed? What was the farmer paid? How is the environment treated in ways that could be validated with data? Because unfortunately, in today's day and age, people don't really trust brands anymore. So we feel like the future of our products and consumer industry is around validated data and knowing that the statements being made, whether it's organic, fair trade, or fresh or natural, whatever else, has an actual data validation component.
Now, I know your target market is the producer, then the consumer, but you also have a third target, right? Who would that be?
Yeah, so we see that the true stakeholders are the people who create the physical product and then those who consume or use the product, right? But the way that that product gets to us as consumers is through businesses, distributors, wholesalers, retailers, consumer brands. So we're really looking to facilitate the direct relationships between those who are creating the product and those who are then buying it in order to sell it to the end consumer. And our goal is to connect this value chain seamlessly, and the information and data that's received by the buyer, what we call a wholesale buyer, that data and information is also received to the consumer.
Okay. And I know agri-tech, agricultural tech overall is not an easy market from a lead generation perspective. And you've done something really fantastic when it comes to cracking the code around that. So walk us through, how did you accumulate this sort of traffic? What is what did you do to get this initial traffic and build assets so you can position yourself as a powerful lead gen machine for these producers?
Yep. I can't take credit for being that smart or intelligent. We really figured this out by accident. I think what we really were guided by is that us as consumers want authenticity. We want integrity. We want trust. We don't want any more greenwashing. We don't want any more BS. We want to know exactly what the truth is. And that's what we're looking for as consumers. So under that guise, what we did is we worked with this avocado farming family to just tell their story authentically. We took photos of them, videos. We went to the farm. We spent time with them. We slept at their house. We got to know them and understand how they're farming, who they are, and what their practices are. We documented it, and then we just started sharing it first on Instagram, making little photos and clips about who the farmers are and how they grow their products, how they pack their avocados. And then we created a simple website that just shared all that information. We made a cool 3-minute video about the process. And what happened was on Instagram, it started building a little momentum. Nothing crazy. I think we have like 4,000 to 5,000 followers. But what happened was we built a really authentic community who loves avocados, who loves our farming story, and they engage with us, they interact. And what happened was they started clicking the link on our Instagram profile for the like 500 to 800 consumers or people who followed our accounts, and really interacted with it. And through that process of clicking our link and then also having our website sharing the information, something very surprising happened. We started getting phone calls and emails from wholesale buyers, importers, retailers, restaurant chains, people from all over the world, over 25 countries, who wanted to buy our avocados directly. And we were at first like, how the heck did this happen? And then one day we started, messing around on Google, and we typed in organic avocados Mexico. And when we typed it in, we could not believe that our little brand of 10 family farms came up #1 on Google, before Amazon, before Calavo, before Mission. These are billion-dollar brands, and here's our little avocado company that was beating them in Google just by having 4,000 followers and 500 people interacting with our community. And it absolutely blew our mind. And that's really how we started building this kind of global idea for storytelling in order for the consumer to drive the buyers. Right now, so much of how our industry works is that the buyers tell the consumers what to like. But we figured out a system that allows the consumers to push forward and then gain the interaction, so that now the buyers come to us because the consumers are interacting.
That's amazing. So I just shared your Instagram page. That's actually the avocado specific Instagram page. So to kind of break down what you just said, you created a dedicated channel on Instagram. From there, you put real stories, and I saw some of them are pictures, looks awesome, and some of them are videos. You drove enough engagement and click-throughs to the website, which usually happens from the description of your profile on Instagram. And because of that cycle leading to the page, Google pushed you as an authority in this field of avocado in Mexico, in the case of this specific key term, which is a huge key term, right? It's probably like the first thing you would look up if you want to source avocado from Mexico. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay. And it's funny because we hear of like Procter and Gamble and Nest and all these groups are doing these studies like, how can we connect to Gen Z? How can we connect to millennials? They're so hard to market to. And it's like, the answer is you don't market to them. Just be honest with them. And even like we don't use all like professional photos. Some of them are just cell phone photos because it's real.
Everybody overthinks the production value or production effort that goes into these things. Sometimes it's just being a little bit creative with your phone, right? That's all it is. But this,
and then telling a really true story. This is one on the page we feature often Maria, who's the mom of Lionel, who runs the brand. Maria is like a 77-year-old lady who has 20 hectares of avocado organic that she does herself. Like the story's already there. What do we need to do? We just need to tell it a little bit.
Exactly. And these people are probably they have like a million stories to share when you sit down with them over a cup of coffee or maybe some guacamole. Now let's carry on from here. So once you've done this with, let's say, the avocado, you were able to replicate the same across different industries, and that's how you were able to have so much traffic coming in to these sites per different farming industry to get the leads through to the end consumer or the buyer from these farmers. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, our goal when we started wasn't to just be an avocado company. This was just the case study for us to learn how to interact and tell the stories to a global market of consumers and how to attract buyers. So what we then did was say, okay, we did this with a family farming group in Mexico, and it worked super well for them. Here's a group that didn't know what even Instagram was. They've never, sold avocados directly to retailers internationally. They don't understand how to tell their story.
Mm-hmm.
So we started trying to figure out how can we give these tools or leverage our media platform in order to help farmers around the world and agricultural producers who have amazing stories, who have great products. How do they share who they are with the world and connect to consumers? So we took the next step and say, well, let's start to try to, work off Instagram handles and accounts that can tell a more broad story about different products, about different communities, about different supply chains, and then start to connect it directly back to our own media site, which is essentially our marketplace, producersmarket.com and producersmarket/blog, where we can now share these stories across a lot of producers all over the world, lots of categories, and start to connect this with consumers and buyers globally.
And mind you, the Facebook, the Instagram page didn't have any mention of buying or selling. It was purely just telling a story.
Yeah, that's it. And sometimes we get some feedback from, our programmers, our developers of our marketplace, of our, blockchain technologies. They're like, why do we keep investing in this Instagram thing? And when we talk to our head of digital marketing, he's like, this is not an Instagram thing. This is about building a global community to support the producers on our platform. And so it goes well beyond Instagram. It's just that Instagram is the tool that many people are using in order to connect into their value chain, their favorite chefs, their favorite farms, their favorite food products. It's just happening through Instagram. So we're using that, but it's really about building a community, and that's all it really is about.
Okay, that's great. And when you say investing, I'm assuming in your case, are you investing in paid ads on Instagram, or is primarily just building up the stories and the different channels?
Yeah, no, we spend no money on advertising. All the money we spend is
no money, no money, you said, right?
$0 on advertising.
Zero.
We spend our money on creating and curating great content. So when we get a bunch of photos from a producer, we try to pick the best ones. If we want to turn them into an infographic or some type of engaging viral content, or figuring out the methodologies, like which colors do we post in which order, what time of day do we post, who do we target with certain posts, what hashtags to use. That's what we invest in.
Hashtags.
We invest in creating the right content, curating the right content, but we don't need to invest in advertising because we believe that, getting the best content out there, you'll attract the right people.
So you build up a recipe around figuring out the proper photo with the right hashtag and story. It's not only just filling the post with hashtag, but probably telling a little introductory story and then adding the hashtags to it. Is that how you do it?
Yeah, more or less. And identifying who are the key influencers in specific categories and going to that long tail, right? And trying to figure out really niche recipes, really cool uses of products. And what we always stress to our team isn't, don't worry about trying to get 1 million likes or 1,000 likes or getting to the top. Create content that really inspires you, that you enjoy making. Have it be a truly creative process, and don't use your mind to think, how am I going to get people to like this? Or how am I going to get people to interact with this? It's more about, how am I going to make something that's awesome, that really I could be proud of creating? And then what we're working towards, with these methodologies, because we don't have like multi-million person, followings on our accounts. Maybe we have 10 or 20,000. One of our accounts is 45,000 people. What we're now working towards are, who are the key influencers and celebrities that are to what we're doing, that can help us expand our communities, and what brands are we aligned to help us expand our communities and share communities, that we can send them links, they can send us links, and start to engage with each other in a way that's very authentic.
Are you paying these influencers, or are you, how does it work as far as arrangement?
Yeah, we're still figuring it out. I think once we get to a certain threshold in the number of followers in our community, in a way, it allows someone who has a following as well to access our following community in order to gain new followers. right?
Okay.
So we look at it
So
as
it's co-sharing networks or followers. Okay.
ideally,
It's a good
but we
strategy.
also can incentivize with, company equity, or, in the future when we sell products, giving them profit shares of products when we sell direct to consumer. So we're looking to get creative, but we just want to keep things energetically really pure. We don't ever want our community to feel like we're using them or we're trying to sell them something. We want to truly have the intention to bring value to their lives.
That's great. So walk me a little bit through how you work with these companies and who pays you from a business model perspective. So if I'm a producer and I have, let's say, um, a farm of mangoes, right? How do you work with me?
So we have an automated onboarding process where they contact us and we put them through a process where they upload all of their information, who they are as a company, all their certifications, which we verify in the database of the suppliers or of the certifiers, and then they upload all of their content, their photos, their videos, who their farmers are, their any other stories, awards, information, their harvest amounts, just as much data as possible. Some
Mhm.
of it's optional, some of it's mandatory, but the content, the photos and videos and storytelling goes into the producer profile database, which is used to generate their profile in our system, but also goes to our digital marketing team, which
Mhm.
is used to then be curated across our platform and shared with our community. And so then, they have their profile submission, then someone from our team will contact them, call them. Most of the producers onboarding now are from our own networks, so we already know them, but we verify that they're actually the grower of the product, that this is really them. And then they're on the system and we start sharing their information, their content in our community. And ultimately, what we want to do is generate new sales for them.
Mhm.
So we connect them with buyers around the world through this filter, and they go on and make the direct transactions.
Okay, perfect. So your initial target, which is the producer, you're working with direct network. The buyer from these producers are finding you through the organic search and your LinkedIn and hashtags and such. And then the end consumer who produces the content to see the story behind the items they're buying, how do these guys find you? Is it also organic?
Yeah, well, we're working on this concept we call the Storybird,
Mhm.
and it's basically our logo. And we're considering maybe putting a QR code in its belly, or if we can altogether do away with the QR code. But essentially, we want to have it so that when it's on a package of coffee, or you're at the deli counter buying fish, or you're at a restaurant on the menu, that you can start to pick up your cell phone, plug into our Storybird, and it brings up our app and it shares with you the information about the product and about the
Okay.
farmers and such. So that's how we
Okay,
want to
great.
engage with the consumers.
How big is the team right now
We have about 20 people on the team, mixed
on the marketing
between
side?
our digital marketing, our programming, UI, UX, business development, operations, and some boring stuff like admin.
How big is the marketing team?
Marketing team is about 8 people, and
Okay,
in many ways, our
substantial.
business. Yeah, I mean, marketing is what drives all of this. And
Mhm.
I think what a lot of the ag tech companies are missing right now is they're building out amazing technologies and they're building out great infrastructures, but without actual buyers and consumers on the system, it won't get used. Because the way I describe it to people is the agriculture value chain is like Fred Flintstone running in his car, and we're just trying to put a horse on the cart, right?
Mhm.
And so to try to move this into some like AI, robotic, virtual, this and that is like farmers are just still learning how to get, especially in emerging markets. A lot of them aren't even in banking systems yet. They're not even in
Right.
digital systems yet. So we're really just figuring out the base level of how to reward more money back to farmers and get people into the banking system, into a digital framework.
Okay. That's great. Last question, Keith.
Yeah.
What do you think is the trickiest thing about getting your first client when you first started? What was the most critical thing or the hardest thing?
Wow. Great question. Um, I think to a certain degree, in order to have the funding, even if it's a small amount of angel funds or pre-seed or seed, whatever, you need to show something. So getting to the point where you're showing some progress, that's not just some idea. I woke up this morning, I have a great idea, now give me money. Like, unless you've already raised millions of dollars and sold multiple companies, it just doesn't work that way unless you got a rich uncle or a mom or brother who believes in you, right? So you have to just constantly work and power through, the whole blood, sweat, and tears thing in order to show that you've built something that has value, even if it's minimal value. Once you have some value to show, like Instagram accounts and a community that's engaged, now you can bring that to a potential client and say, look what we've accomplished. Do you want to test this with us? Or we'll do this for free with you, but can you do this with us as a farmer, as a buyer? And I think it's that first push in order to have some value and about finding the resources to make that first push. Once you start doing that, then you're between the chicken and the egg, but you can kind of force the issue and make it happen. But getting to that first point is like the hardest part so far.
That's great. Thanks for this. So here you go, guys. We have Keith Agoada from Producers Market. Keith and his team were able to create a self-sufficient way of generating leads by driving traffic from real stories on Instagram to their website, through which consumers and also buyers from the farmers were finding them. And in this way, they were generating leads not only for them, but also for the farmers. The initial stages, they were able to scale this by creating presence on Instagram and getting the first or the early adopters to try it for free in order for them to create the momentum. I think this was brilliant. Keith, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, amazing summarizing. I could learn something from you, so thank you. And thanks for having me. Really, really wonderful to share with your audience, and we're excited to learn more from you guys too.
Pleasure. We'll put links to your Instagram and your website as well, so people can find you from our links. Keith, again, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. Appreciate it.